Welcome to our NetSquared Toronto event. I'm not sure how many of you are from Toronto or from other places, but it's been exciting with this pandemic to see people come in from all over the world. So it's nice to be able to share that way, at least. NetSquared, I think most of you probably already know about NetSquared, but they are a nonprofit and they try to set up these events in order to bring together technology and resource partners with other nonprofits so that you can have access to great information that can help you grow your nonprofit and operate your nonprofit. I'm Sandra. I'm the host for the Toronto chapter of NetSquared, and I work full time in IT in the government sector, and I IT product manager. So I work with systems a lot, and on the side, I run All About Systems, where I try to help nonprofits and small businesses operate more efficiently. So lately I've been focusing a lot on implementing G Suite for nonprofits and for small businesses. Been doing some other webinars as well and one-on-one training for small business owners. That's a little bit about me, and I'll pass it along to Miguel so he can get started and you can tell us a bit about yourself and teach us about cybersecurity.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Sandra. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak to you folks about cybersecurity. Today, we're going to talk about 7 tips to improve cybersecurity hygiene. And it should take about 30 minutes, and then we'll have an opportunity for dealing with any questions. So before I get started, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here today. Cybersecurity is such an important matter, and the more that you are educated on it, the more likely that you will be able to protect your data better. And that's because it all starts with you as the individual, right? In other words, what you click on, what you open, what you browse, you have total control over that. So having a bit of education as to what is safe, I think, is really important. So I appreciate that you're taking the time to learn these best practice tips today. So the agenda today is we're going to talk about security risks and vulnerabilities. We're going to talk about ransomware threat, which is a real big issue, and I'll elaborate on what ransomware is in case you don't know. And we're going to talk about the human firewall, which I just alluded a little bit to, which is, it starts with the individual. And please feel free to ask questions using the chat. So a little bit about us as a company, VBS IT Services. We help nonprofit organizations succeed by operating at peak performance with secure and reliable technology. We offer cybersecurity protection, monitoring, and training. We also do 24/7 managed IT services to keep your systems reliable and maximize productivity. And we also do Zoho CRM for anyone that is interested in having a CRM system to run your operations. A little bit about me. I've been in the industry since 1998, so I'm literally a dinosaur in this industry, and I've loved every minute of it, except when I first started. So I was a victim myself, and I have a video that talks about my particular experience with security and downtime. And just to share with you a real quick story, when I started in 1998, I was new to the industry. Security was not a big, top of mind matter back then. It has changed and evolved tremendously over the years. And what had happened was that somehow our systems were contaminated with a virus. And the virus, unfortunately, corrupted our accounting system, which essentially was running our entire business at the time. And what had happened was that we, of course, followed a procedure to restore the data. And when we went back to our backups, which back then were done on tape, and if you know anything about tape backups, you know, they're reliable, but not the most reliable source of backups. And so when we went back to our tape, we found out that we didn't have a backup for, you know, several weeks that we could restore from. Now, luckily, we managed to find a tape that was offsite that actually worked. And so we were able to restore the data. However, that data was 3 months old. So we had lost 3 months of, you know, invoicing, purchase orders, all of that information that we use to run our business. We had lost all of that data. We had to manually key it all in. And that took about 2.5 weeks. And then, you know, we started getting back into some normal routine. Now, unfortunately, the biggest, you know, challenge was that we had lost our momentum because we had gone through this disruption, and it took another 3 months for us to get back on track. So it was a very disruptive experience. And I vowed never to let it happen again within our organization, but also within our clients. So I took it upon myself to learn about cybersecurity. Well, back then it was just called security. And I have been focused on that ever since. So we don't want any of our clients or anyone that we know going through any of these experiences. And that's why I'm doing these events, to help educate you on some best practice tips. So let's talk about cybersecurity attacks. Now, there's a big misconception that they only happen to large organizations, when in fact, 71% of data breaches actually happen to businesses less than 100 employees. And the reason that people believe it's only large organizations is because when you hear it in the news, it typically relates to large organizations that were breached or attacked. And the reason that is that, you know, those are stories that, you know, I guess attract attention. If it was a small situation, people likely wouldn't pay much attention to it. So it's really the folks in the news industry that want to push big news out, and that's why it causes this kind of misconception that it's only occurring to large organizations. But smaller businesses are much more vulnerable because they don't have the resources, they don't have the funding to properly protect themselves and their data. And I'm going to give you some tips on what you could do to improve that. 60% of small businesses go out of business after a data breach. And that's because of, you know, I explained to you my story, how disruptive it was. And it was just a virus at that time. It didn't lock down our data. It didn't do anything really malicious compared to what can occur these days. So, you know, you lose that momentum, and then it becomes that much more difficult to get back on track. And some businesses just aren't capable of doing that. So you never want to be in that position where, you know, you risk potentially losing your data, potentially closing your business. Let's talk about ransomware. I'm not sure if you've heard of ransomware or if you're familiar with what it does, but essentially ransomware is a malware that contaminates your system. And what it does, it encrypts all of your data. And I'm going to show you a video in a moment of how this actually happens. And once it's encrypted, the only way to unencrypt the data is to pay a ransom. And the folks that you pay the ransom to, they will deliver the encryption key and unencrypt that data for you. Now, here's the problem with all of this. You're dealing with criminals. Can you trust them? No. Oftentimes, even when people pay the ransom, they don't get those encryption keys and they don't get their data back. So, everything is done through Bitcoin in terms of payment, which is untraceable. And, if you ever have to go through the process of setting up a Bitcoin account to be able to pay for it, I mean, that whole process is so cumbersome, it could take literally days before it resolves itself. And again, there's no guarantee that you're ever going to get those unencryption keys. So you want to prevent being, getting ransomware on your network. That really is the main objective. And I'm going to show you again a video illustrating what damage ransomware can cause. Okay, and I'll get to it in a minute. So employees are your weakest link, and I alluded to that right from the very beginning. It all starts with you. It all starts on what you click on, what emails you open, what websites you go to. So the key is to ensure that you and all your employees, your entire team, is well educated on what to look for so that you can create that what we call human firewall to make sure that employees are, again, aware of the scams so that they don't get caught in those situations. Again, 95% of data breaches are caused by employee mistakes. So I'm going to give you some tips on what to avoid. All right, at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to share with you a video that is actually going to show you how a ransomware attack occurs. So give me a moment here while I switch. Sorry, folks. Just one moment. I'm losing my Zoom here. Okay. Bear with me, and here we go. Okay. Sandra, can you let me know if you can see something that says ransomware demo?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay. Can you
Hi,
hear it?
I'm Kevin Mitnick,
Yep, I can hear
formerly
it.
a black hat
All right.
hacker
I'm going to
and the
start
most.
this over. All right.
Hi, I'm Kevin Mitnick, formerly a black hat hacker and the most wanted hacker in the world. Today I'm a white hat hacker, so I help organizations like yours stay secure and help your employees have better security hygiene. So what's the #1 threat to your organization today? It's ransomware. What exactly is ransomware? It's malicious software that once it gets into your environment, it scrambles or encrypts all your files so you no longer have access to it. So how do the bad guys get ransomware into your network? The #1 way is through spear phishing. That's where the bad guy sends malicious emails to your employees, and if they click on a link, open up an attachment, it infects their computer with ransomware and scrambles all their files and even the files that are on network shares. So the threat of ransomware is actually evolving into what I call ransom cloud. And this is how the bad guy deploys ransomware into your cloud services like Office 365. So over here on the right, I have a Windows 10 laptop that's all up to date with the security patches. It's running the latest antivirus definitions. This is the typical laptop that might be in your environment. And we're also logged into Office 365, as you can see. And you can see that my emails are pretty much normal, what you might see. I'll go through a couple of them, and we could actually read those emails. Over here, I have the hacker console. You see it's logged into an application called Sapo. This is the attacker in the cloud. And the attacker is going to be able to send a spear phishing attack to the victim, which is over here. And once the victim falls for the spear phishing attack, you'll see what the attacker could do with their cloud-based email. So what are we going to do for the pretext, the con, the phish? Is we're going to pretend to be a division of Microsoft that's deploying a new product called Anti-Spam Pro. Anti-Spam Pro will be a product that helps eliminate spam on their Office 365 account. So let me show you how it works. So we're going to pretend to be support at antispampro.com. We're going to be Anti-Spam Pro as the company name. The victim is going to be me. I'm going to type in my name as well. Right now that's been set. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see this. And then I'm going to click create. And what create does, it will send the spear phishing attack. Pay attention to the upper right-hand portion of the screen. I'm going to click create. You'll see up here that it should say sent in a moment. There it goes. It says the email has successfully been sent. That's the attacker sending the spear phishing email to my account over here. And as you can see, I just received an email from Anti-Spam Pro. Let's take a look and see what it says. So I'm going to be the victim here. I'm going to double click the email. It's going to have the Microsoft branding in it, as you can see. And basically it's a message that says, as a part of our effort to improve the experience of all our customers and to eliminate spam-based email, we're offering you to enable this service. And if you want the product, the only thing you have to do to enable it is click the following link in the email. Just click the link. So let's go ahead and do it. It's going to ask me to, re-authenticate, which is normal. And then what it asks me to do, it asks for permissions, because Anti-Spam Pro needs permissions to eliminate spam. And what an ordinary user will take a look at it and says, yeah, this sounds normal, that they need to look at your email, they need to read your email, they need full access and this sort of thing. And as soon as the victim accepts those permissions, it's game over. And now we go to the attacker computer and we're going to refresh. And we're going to enable certain functionalities. So this web application is actually in the cloud. This victim could be any company located on any part of the planet. It doesn't matter. So what functions do we have here? If we look at the bottom here, what we could do is we could view the victim's contacts of this person here. I could view their emails. I could send email as them, and a few other things which I'll get to in a moment. So let's go ahead and view the emails. Let me zoom out. We'll view emails. What does view emails mean? What I'm doing is I'm viewing the emails of the victim that clicked on the spear phishing link, so I have complete access to their emails. What else I could do is I could actually send email as them. So I could send email to their colleagues, to their business partners, to their family or friends, and use the same spear phishing attack to attack them. But what's the most scariest of them all is Ransom Cloud. What Ransom Cloud's going to do is, in real time, as you'll see, infect the victim's emails, actually encrypt them so the user no longer has access. So let's go ahead and enable Ransom Cloud. I'm going to click Enable Ransom Cloud. And you see in real time it says infected, 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 infected. What the attacker is doing is actually encrypting all the emails in this account so the victim no longer has access. What we do see is the subject line. Why do the attackers leave the subject line? Is so the victim knows what emails they can't access. So if we take a look over here, we'll scroll up, and you see an email that says, your emails have been encrypted. If you ever get that type of message, you're going to have a very bad day. So let's take a look at the message. I'm going to double click the email, and I get this scary message. This is what exactly a ransomware attack looks like. We have a message that says your emails have been encrypted. It explains that your attachments have been encrypted as well, and you will no longer have access to it unless you send $300 of Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency, to this Bitcoin address, which belongs to the criminal, the bad guy. So unless you pay the ransom, you'll no longer have access to your email. A pretty scary thing. So what can you actually do about this type of attack? I strongly recommend that you consider a managed service provider. These are the individuals that are trained to help you remediate and recover from this attack without reinfecting your environment. What traits of a managed service provider should?
Okay, so you get the idea. It is a very disruptive process to go through, a ransomware. So now I'm going to share my presentation again and continue where I left off. So bear with me. Okay, can you guys see my presentation? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I can see it. Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you for that. All right, let's talk about best practices. Well, before I do, as Kevin mentioned, if you ever get one of those messages that your emails have been encrypted, yeah, you're going to have a really bad day. And I can tell you that it happens every single day. And we've come across it many times and had to deal with it for many of our clients. So hopefully by going through these best practice tips, it's going to help you to prevent these kinds of experiences. So here we go. The first thing you want to do if you're working from an office is that you want to secure your network with a firewall that has capabilities to block hackers, DDoS attacks, ransomware, phishing, viruses, all the malicious type of activity, as well as block access to malicious websites, because there are plenty of them out there. And so these firewalls have that capability, but you can also extend that capability to remote workers by using what's called VPN access to the network. So each individual working from a home office can use VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network, connect to that firewall so that they'll receive the same kind of protection that they would even if they were in the office. So, that's one thing that you definitely want to spend, some time and energy, is to ensure that you have a good firewall protecting your environment. The other thing that a lot of organizations neglect to do is update computer software patches. So whether you're on Microsoft or you're either Windows or Mac computer, it applies to both environments. You want to make sure that you update all your critical patches. They are updated on a regular basis for a reason. It's to ensure that you have the latest security in your operating system to, again, prevent many of these situations. In fact, 60% of breaches in 2019 involved unpatched vulnerabilities. So, it's such a simple thing to make sure that those updates are done, preferably automatically. And if you ever get to that point where updates have been installed and it asks you to reboot your machine, don't delay it. Just reboot to complete the installation. Now, the other thing that's really, really important is to use secure passwords and multi-factor authentication. So let me explain. First, let's talk about passwords. They must be minimum 8 characters long, and they should have capitals as well as symbols. And this can all be enforced with policies, but if you don't have the capability of enforcing it, at least just be aware that you should have these minimum requirements for your passwords. Now, what we find is that a lot of people don't want to change their passwords because they forget them. So what we recommend is use password phrases. So for example, if you like shopping, you could say, I love shopping, and use a character and numbers as part of that password phrase so that it's easy to remember, all right? And you should change those passwords every 60 to 90 days and never use the same password for logins to other sites or other applications. Never. That's a no-no. You want to have separate individual passwords for all of your logins. And the reason for that is that if you do use passwords that are similar for every login, should, for example, a site get hacked, like years ago, for instance, LinkedIn was hacked, and all the passwords that were used in LinkedIn ended up on the dark web. The dark web is where criminals go to find information. If they find those passwords, what they'll do is they'll use variations of those passwords to try to access your system or your website. So you want to make sure that your passwords are always different. Now, in terms of managing passwords, people struggle with that. And what we recommend, use a product called Roboform. Roboform is a password management software. It is managed through a browser as well as your smartphone. So it will keep all of your passwords. It in fact helps you log into sites automatically because it is running on a browser. So when you come up to a site, let's say again, you're logging into your G Suite, for instance, it will populate the password for your G Suite account automatically using the Roboform application. So very important that you manage passwords effectively. Now let's talk about multi-factor authentication. Many of you may understand what that means, but some may not. Multi-factor authentication basically means that once you're logging into, again, let's say you're going into G Suite, you enter your password, the system is going to send you a text with an authentication code, and you need to enter that authentication code to fully log into the system. I can't tell you how many times that has saved so many people we know from serious problems. So, multi-factor authentication is available in Office 365, G Suite, and many other applications. Highly recommend that you set that up and use it every single day for all your logins. So I hope that's helped. Again, really simple stuff, but most people don't do it. We highly recommend that you follow these best practices with passwords and multi-factor authentication. So the other tip that we're giving is protect your device on any network using a cybersecurity protection software. Antivirus, unfortunately, is not enough. It doesn't have the robust capabilities that many other softwares out there do to protect you from phishing scams, ransomware, also protect you from sites that you go and visit. We highly recommend that you look into a product that has rich feature capabilities to protect you from, again, ransomware, phishing, and websites that are malicious. And if you need any insight on options available in the marketplace, I'm happy to help out. You can reach out to me. I'll give you my contact details at the end. Now, the other thing that's really, really important is data backups. You see, because there is no system out there, there's no software that is 100% foolproof, that is going to protect you 100%. And so there may come a point where you need to resort to a backup to restore your data. So we recommend that you look at a backup that is reliable, that has ransomware protection built into it, and that you also test your backups. Test the backup so that you ensure that it's actually working properly. A lot of times people don't pay attention to their backups. They just think it's going to run automatically, which it does. But if there are errors or issues in the backup, you should receive an email or some kind of notification to let you know that there was an issue so that you can resolve it and make sure that your backup is working properly. Only about 6% of companies survive longer than 2 years after a significant data loss. and it's because they don't have a proper backup. So highly recommend that you spend some time and energy ensuring that your backup is working properly. We talked a little bit about this, employee security training. So 95% of breaches are caused by employee mistakes. You know, these happen to anybody. It could be on a Monday morning when somebody is not quite, you know, fully into their work, or it could be on a Friday afternoon where, you know, people are kind of rushing to get out the door and you're not paying attention, you click on the wrong thing, and before you know it, you know, your system is contaminated. And what's interesting is that a lot of attacks actually occur after hours or late in the afternoon. So, you know, again, you know, cyber criminals, they know the optimal time to reach out and to, you know, start their, you know, attack campaigns, so that, you know, you need to train your employees so that they know what a phishing email is, what to look for in the content of the email. There's a lot of things that give it away. I won't be going into it here today, but there's a lot of information available on the web as to what to look for in phishing emails. Also, you know, pay attention to what websites you're going to. And if it doesn't look legitimate, don't click on it. Don't go on it at all. So just, you know, train your people. On our website, we do have a lot of content available on cybersecurity training. You're welcome to visit our blog, do a search for cybersecurity, and you'll see all kinds of content available to help you train. In addition, we actually have training programs. So, you know, that might be something that your organization might want to look at. Again, the whole idea is to create a human firewall. So that's your actual best type of protection, is to create that human firewall. Perform security risk assessments. This is also very, very important. You don't know what you don't know. And until you start actually digging deeper, you don't realize whether or not your systems are actually well protected. So you might want to do a security risk assessment, or otherwise called cyber security assessment. You know, they can be expensive, but there are organizations that make it cost effective by using software that automates the whole process. That's what we do. We do these assessments all the time. And what it does is it identifies where the gaps are. And so when you know you have gaps, you know that you need to correct those issues by implementing either policies or technology to protect your environment. So highly recommend that you get an assessment done on your technology. And that includes everyone in the organization, regardless if they work in the office or out of the office. Any of your systems that have company data, you want to perform an assessment to ensure that they are properly protected. So that's it. Those are the 7 tips. I hope that they have been helpful and insightful in any way. And if you want to continue the conversation, I welcome you to reach out to me. Email me at miguelr@VBS IT Services. And if you like, we'll do a free cybersecurity consultation just to discuss your current situation, give you additional tips, and you know, make sure that you're not going to be a victim of cybersecurity breach. So that's it. And let's see, are there any questions?
I haven't seen any come up, but I guess I have one question.
Okay.
Like on the whole firewall side of thing, that's like I get the necessity and how it applies to large organizations that actually have a network that they can apply a firewall to. But I know some of the nonprofits in our group may not necessarily be that large of an organization and may not have a network, or they might work remotely, especially as is the case right now. There's no actual location for most of us, probably. So what is a good way to protect themselves if they don't necessarily have a corporate network that they're working off of?
Very good question. So that really depends on, excuse me, the environment of each individual. But I can give you some tips here that are really simple. One is I spoke about earlier, having a cybersecurity software installed that is better than your antivirus. So that is one thing that will help tremendously in protecting each endpoint or each computer. The other thing that people can do is that if they don't have that firewall that they can VPN into, there is VPN software available that that can help you in that regard. So it's a monthly subscription, usually relatively inexpensive on a per user basis. And what it does is it filters all of the traffic through a secure server, so that people are accessing websites and your data securely. So those are the two things that you can do. The VPN subscription is helpful, but I would say more importantly, you want to focus on a cybersecurity software that is going to protect your system.
And Marco is asking, and I'm curious as well, if you have any examples of that cybersecurity software that would be good to install.
Yeah, absolutely. We use a product and recommend a product called Sophos Intercept X. Sophos Intercept X, and it is a full cybersecurity solution that replaces your antivirus. It's lightweight, so it doesn't use up a lot of resources, but it gives you a lot of protection. And it has a ransomware feature whereby if you do get contaminated with ransomware, you can revert back to the moment in time pre the launch of that malware. So in other words, you don't even have to revert to a backup to restore. Within the software itself, it has that capability. So really strong protection. So again, that's Sophos Intercept X.
Excellent. And I think there's a couple more questions. The Sophos, S-O-P-H-O-S?
Correct, yes.
So a question about the password managers. How do you choose the right password manager? Sarah's never heard of Roboform. I've heard of it, and I know Dan also recommended another one, KeyPass, and I've used 1Password. So how do you decide which is a good password manager to use?
Well, we recommend Roboform because they have a good, an excellent security story, and to our knowledge, they've never been hacked. That's one of the reasons why we recommend the Roboform solution. But yes, you're right. There's a lot of different options out there. There's also LastPass is a really common one. LastPass, unfortunately, was hacked many years ago. So, which could be a good thing because they learned their lessons and stepped up their cybersecurity game. Really, it's entirely up to you as to which software you think is easiest to use or is within your budget. Roboform does have a free version for personal use, and that's another reason why we recommend it. So you want to look for things like ease of use, integration into your browser, so that when you are logging into sites, it'll automatically populate the password. Those types of things make it simple and easy to use. And most of the softwares do offer that. And then another thing that you want to look for is obviously a good secure app that will run on your smartphone that has at least 128-bit encryption, preferably 256 encryption, And that ensures that if ever you lose your phone, no one's going to get into your password manager software.
And how would you rate Google's password manager? Because I know Google accounts all have a password manager as well, and they it stores your password. Would that be the same kind of function as all of these other options, or?
So Sandra, are you referring to Google Chrome, how it saves the passwords?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
not how it saves. Like Google has, like if you go to, I think it's passwords.google.com, you can see all of your stored passwords on your Google account. So when I log in using Chrome to various sites, I can save my password to my Google password manager. Is that the same as using Roboform, or?
Good question. I have to investigate that because I've never actually used it myself. So one thing I will say though, that if you're using Chrome and you're saving your passwords in Chrome, even Google will tell you that you shouldn't be doing that. In fact, you'll generate a message saying that you shouldn't be saving your passwords in Google Chrome at all. So if that's what you're referring to, I would do away with it and replace it with another password manager software. But the Google Password Manager software, I'm just not familiar with it. We work mostly with Office 365 and just not familiar with that particular option. It's changing every day, so it's hard to keep up, right?
Yeah. And Sarah's got a related question here about wondering if the password manager company would then have all your passwords, and wouldn't it kind of be a security breach, and sort of, because they have your passwords. And to add on to her question, I know that some of these password managers allow you to invite users so that you can share like vaults with them. So that, if you have an admin assistant, you can share the vault with them so that they can access a certain number of sites or websites or applications and have your passwords. But you're still essentially giving them your password as well, right? So I guess your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, so before you sign on to any kind of password manager software, you'll want to read their their policies and their terms to make sure that that they are in fact secure and you're going to feel comfortable with it. So in regards to accessibility to passwords, like say, for example, for people that work at the company, no, no one has access to it. In fact, all accounts are encrypted. They all have people's own personal passwords. So in order to access that data, you would have to have access to the account itself. And so I can't see that happening. But again, I don't work for any of these organizations. You definitely want to look at their terms and conditions and their policies to make sure that you feel comfortable with using it. I've personally never heard of any stories where employees have accessed the data. I've only heard in situations where, I mentioned LastPass was breached years ago. So that is a concern that it could potentially be breached because no one is infallible. That's just the truth. So you might want to maybe only reserve passwords for things such as access to your company accounts or your personal accounts, but not necessarily for your bank account, for instance, or investment account. Maybe you want to leave those out just because you'll feel more comfortable not sharing that information. People do all the time, but if there's a question about feeling comfortable having that data in the cloud, my suggestion is maybe don't put bank accounts and again, investment accounts and anything that involves, your finances, just in case, and use a different method of saving that data. I'm going to share with you and be honest that that's how I do it, because I'm a skeptic, and because I am in this industry and I know what happens every single day. So I use Roboform for my major logins to my applications that I use every day, but I don't use it for banking or anything financial. I have another piece of software that I use for that isn't even on the internet.
Excellent. That was really helpful. I think we have one more question here that I missed from Jacqueline. She asks, we get phishing emails periodically from a staff member asking them to purchase credit cards or purchase something from them because they are currently busy. The from email is never from our domain, but I'm wondering how harmful it is to have opened the email or to respond to the email.
Good question. So opening, opening is not a big issue. When you open the email, the sender will know that you've at least opened it. The big concern is what action you take next, which is, if you click on a link and go to a site, you don't want to do that because you'll be enticed to take action once you land on that site, or there could be malware that executes automatically when you go to that link. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to click on any links. Unfortunately, you cannot completely stop phishing attacks because anyone can send an email pretending that they're somebody else. They can use your existing domain or create any other domain that looks similar. So unfortunately, there's no way to stop it 100%. There is software like the Sophos software that I mentioned that will, for example, stop those phishing attacks from ending up in your inbox. But it will also, when you click on the link, if it is a malicious link, it will stop that execution completely. So this is where software does play into it. But again, you have to use a combination of the human firewall and technology to protect yourself. But to answer the rest of your question, if you ever receive an email that you feel suspicious about, my recommendation is revert to the old way of doing things. Pick up your phone. Pick up your phone and call that individual. Many of us don't do that anymore because it's so easy just to respond to the email and say, what is this about? Or can you elaborate or whatever? Give me more information. Don't do that. Don't, with suspicious emails, don't take that kind of action. Instead, if it is somebody that you can contact, reach out to them. If there is no number and you are suspicious of the email, my recommendation is delete it. Delete it, don't respond, ignore it. I know that people are I get curious and they want to respond and they want to keep that conversation going. But if you don't know the individual and you don't know the company, you have no responsibility to respond. And at that point, just delete the email. And if it is something that is important that you accidentally deleted, chances are they're going to give you a call later on. So that's my suggestion to deal with those situations.
I agree. I was going to say that as well. If it's important, they'll find a way to get in touch with you.
Exactly.
Like all those CRA calls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a common one.
Oh, well, that was really helpful. I think Marco was also asking about that additional software that you said you used.
Yes. So again, it's Sophos Intercept X.
I think it was, oh, is that, okay, is that what you were talking about? Instead of for the password manager that you would use for your banking information?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so for day-to-day access to your corporate accounts, Roboform is a great solution. The other product that I use for my personal use that does not link to the internet is called Ascendo Data Vault, and I think it's spelled ASCENDO, Ascendo Data Vault.
Great.
It's relatively inexpensive. I think maybe $20, $25 to buy it outright. There's no monthly fee, and you can install it on your smartphone, install it on your computer, and the way that it synchronizes between your computer and your smartphone is over your own network connection. So it does not go out to the internet.
Excellent. And I think that's it for questions, unless I missed something. Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up if I did miss any of the questions in the chat. But I think we got everything.
Oh, good.
So
Well, I
thanks so
just want to
much,
leave you
Miguel. That
with
was
this.
really helpful. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just want to leave you with this. These are really simple tips. There's more that you can do, but I think this gives you some insight on, how to protect yourself a little bit better. Just be aware, manage your passwords effectively, change your passwords, and excuse me, have some good software in place to protect your systems. These are all, they seem really simple things, but I can tell you a lot of people don't do them. And if you just do these simple things that I mentioned, you'll be much further ahead in ensuring that your data is not going to be breached and that you're not going to be in a situation with ransomware. So I hope that never happens, and I hope this was helpful. And again, if there are any questions and you want to verify anything, reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk about technology and especially cybersecurity.
Excellent. And if you need, Miguel's information is there on the screen, but I believe it should also be on our meetup invite where you would have found out about this event. Excellent. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone again for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. And Sandra, thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks to everyone, and hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Take care.
I see you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.